Building a startup is a faith-based exercise. It's not unlike building a church.
Hmm.
You have a mission and you have a vision for a world that doesn't exist.
And you got to find converts, otherwise it's all for naught.
And then people believe you. People believe you, and you've got to make that future a reality. But ultimately, that is only possible with great people doing great things consistently every day. And peril to the person that forgets that that is what makes great companies. Great people doing great things every day. And I wish that we were not in a space and place where things like 996 culture and we just grind and, like, like people are an afterthought, especially if people have commitments outside of work to take care of loved ones,
Yeah.
um, because that's not durable. And we're not just creating companies, we're creating durable going concerns that produce something great every day.
Lexi Reese has helped scale some of the most recognizable names in tech, from Google's ad business to COO of Gusto. Now she's the co-founder and CEO of Lanai, an AI interaction observability platform. In this episode, Lexi breaks down how she validated Lanai's idea, ran 200 customer interviews before writing a line of code, and built a team that includes what she calls AI teammates. She also shares some candid lessons on finding product market fit, raising capital in this tougher environment, and leading without burning out. I'm Walter Thompson. This is Fund, Build, Scale. I'm talking today with Lexi Reese. She's the co-founder and CEO of Lanai. Lexi, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Walter. Excited to be here.
So start us off. What does Lanai do? Why is it cool?
Yeah, so Lanai is an AI interaction observability platform. It's cool because you have so many people using AI in different forms, and it is really difficult if you're leading a company right now to manage that. So we organize AI at work by making all interactions visible, safe, and impactful. Think of us as Datadog or Splunk for the AI era.
What were you doing when you first had the idea for this?
So I had been an operator for 25 years, Amex, Google, Gusto. I know we're going to get into that. And I spent a year at General Catalyst where Ken Chenault, who had been my boss at American Express, was now the chairman of General Catalyst, and they had invested in Gusto. So I also knew the leader of General Catalyst, Himant. I spent a year helping them develop their thesis on what does the future of work look like given big tectonic shifts, including AI. So I had spent a long time with lots of leaders, especially CIOs, chief data officers, CEOs of big companies, saying, what do you think your world of work is going to look like in 5 years? And what kept happening was the following, that people knew AI was going to change everything,
Mhm.
but they didn't quite know how. And I connected with my co-founder, Steve Herod, who had been the first CTO at VMware. He had co-invented virtualization, which effectively makes the cloud possible. And together we both brainstormed on an idea that was funded out of his incubator VC studio, which is called Juxtapose. And the idea was so many venture dollars were going into models and how big were the models, but very little energy or dollars were going into how are big workplaces going to use all of these models and how are they going to make decisions on what jobs they'll have AI do versus what jobs they will have their human workforce do. And as someone who has led big technology teams, Steve, somebody who has led lots of commercial teams, Lexi, we said that is a problem we want to obsess over and
Mhm.
give people effectively a control system for making good decisions about ultimately that very critical question, which is what jobs is AI going to do for a company, and what are the humans we have going to do for the company?
So, approximately how much time passed between day zero and serving your first customer?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I have to say, Steve was kind of working on this more from the Juxtaposed studio. And then I joined him officially as CEO and co-founder. So he had probably been working on it for 6 months. I came on, and it took us probably 6 months to get our first customer. So from idea to first customer, 12 months.
The two of you don't sound like a risky team particularly, but I am curious about the customer discovery process. Like, how long was that? As far as how many people did you talk to, I guess, before you started building?
Oh my God. I mean, at least, again, it depends on where you start. But when I had a Lanai hat on explicitly, and I hadn't
Mhm.
been doing that research for General Catalyst or my entire life, I would say definitely 200 interviews, I would say, before we really said, okay, what is the code? Like, what is the exact problem we're solving and in what order? And we started to hire a development team to work on it.
Mhm.
And officially we're still in beta. So now it's been 16 months, and we have cohorts of customers using the product, but it's not generally available.
Looking back at that process of talking to prospective customers, first off, of those people you talk to, what percentage are existing customers in the platform today?
Well, because we're limited in how many we can take,
Mhm.
I would say we're, all of the customers that we were willing to take that wanted to be a design partner where you're kicking the tires and sort of the product isn't perfect yet are customers. So
Mhm.
we had sort of a 100% hit rate, but that's a little difficult to give us credit for, in that we chose customers that we felt had both this challenge, and the challenge was, wow, we want to lean into AI safely. Actually, the name Lanai comes from a customer saying, "Oh, I see what you guys are trying to do. You're helping me lean into AI safely." And that captured that there were a ton of, and there are a ton of AI security startups that are going after the security budgets. And effectively, they're big brother surveillance companies. They're monitoring keystrokes, they're surfacing risks, and effectively doing data leak detection, data leak prevention in a very old world security way, just
Mhm.
in the AI era. And our thesis was, in order to lean into AI safely, we have to address that we need to surface where there are risks. And risks are often coming from employees who are using AI because we're in this blind AI mandate era. CEOs have said, we want to be AI first. Everybody's going to get fired if they don't use AI. So what
Mhm.
do employees do? They go use a bunch of AI. But meanwhile, there's somebody, usually the chief data officer, the chief information officer, who has been tasked with help us manage this thing. And they need to balance the people whose job it is to use AI to drive innovation that shows up in the P&L somewhere, and the people whose job it is to mitigate risks for the company. So our thread of that needle is an observability agent that does a really cool thing that hasn't been done before and took a while to build, which is detect that somebody's using AI for work without exfiltrating data out of a workplace.
Mhm.
So that ability to do that is kind of akin to, we feel, virtualization back in the day, to detect somebody's using AI wherever they're using it, whether it's with the easy to detect, like, hey, they're on OpenAI or Claude, or the much harder things, which is all the AI that's embedded in every software app they're used to using, like
Right.
Salesforce or Notion or Zendesk. Um, and so this is a long story to say, to discover that the obsession that we were going to focus on was how do we help the CIO and the chief data officer, chief AI officer, the person who is in charge of leaning into AI safely? How do we help them start with insights that drive to safer use, but more high impact use?
Mhm. Do you have any insight into like outcomes of AI use, or is it really more about just like usage itself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to show you a demo at some point, but it's all about outcomes. So one of the most amazing things that I learned at Google was actually from the founder of Waze, who we acquired Waze, and he gave this sort of rallying cry to the VPs at the time, and he was like, "You guys suck." It was a pretty interesting way. His name was Noam. It's a pretty interesting way to start the talk. But he was like, "You guys suck. You have lost your way as it relates to being able to build products
Hmm.
that people love." Like, and he was challenging us. He was like, "What's the last product you built that people loved? You built search, you built Gmail, but you bought YouTube,
Hmm.
you kind of fucked it up.
Right.
And he lists all the
Right.
things.
Orchid.
And he said the problem with having a money minting advertising machine, as you guys have created, is it makes you fat and lazy, and you have to obsess over what are the wow moments. Literally, what is your customer going to say to their friend or colleague when they use their product that starts with wow? And he said, our obsession metric for 4 years at Waze was wow, check out this app. It saved me 10 minutes on my commute. That was it. That
Hmm.
was the key. Like, what is the wow moment? So we obsess over wow moments in discovery. So the first one was you helped us discover 80 shadow AI apps we didn't know exist. Finally, actual data on shadow AI, not a consultant's estimate, not a survey, not URLs, an inventory of what people are using actually right now. That was the first wow moment. Like we engineered for that and we got it yesterday. That was amazing because the reality is AI tools are more like teammates.
Hmm.
They're much more like teammates than tools. And so if you approach observability as if it's a static data list or a set of tools, you're not going to help the customer solve the problem of when and where to deploy AI for a job that we need to do to serve our customers. And when should we not do that? And that starts with making sure we get it right that, hey, this is all the interactions that your employees are having with AI. And then there's follow on wow moments from that that get closer to the impact that have to do with I can finally answer the question of which teams are actually using AI, and now I see this is the second. We paid for 100 AI power users to get ChatGPT,
Hmm.
but your dashboard showed us only 47 are daily
Right.
active users. The other 44 have not logged in since we onboarded. So we just reallocated $180,000 to Claude, which they saw people using a
Right.
lot.
Or even just
Um,
maybe some training for how to use AI in general. Maybe I don't know.
Sure. And then we actually surface like not the BS of engineers use, Replit for code. We
Hmm.
say that engineers use GitHub Copilot 27% of the time for automated testing script generation. Like this is the specific use. And
Hmm.
here's what's cool, Walter, and why I feel passionate to say Lanai helps you manage risk, but we are not a security tool because these are insights that are anonymous by default. Because my behavior would certainly change if I thought I was
Sure.
being surveilled.
Yeah.
But if I feel like I'm being included by my employer in seeking out the productive workflows and that my usage might get spotlighted in the company all hands as like, hey, this engineer just released a high quality feature in a fraction of the time using AI teammates in the following ways,
Hmm.
which is what Lanai helps with. That's really cool.
So I was familiar with the word lanai. It was funny to hear you describe it because I assumed you just had it, named it after the Hawaiian word for kind of an enclosed patio. But it's a, like, I think, what is it, a portmanteau? I guess we put two things together. That's interesting.
I lo I love branding, and it's funny you mentioned that. So it should feel like it controls the chaos and the hype
Hmm.
and the hyperbole around AI. I mean, I feel like none of us were saying the word AI much before 2023 when ChatGPT hit 100 million users.
Hmm.
And then now I make it a drinking game. We haven't said the P word yet, but if we do, productivity, we are going to have to drink because suddenly it was like AI, productivity, AI, productivity. And I finally this is where a nonlinear background kind of helps because you just end up asking dumb questions that can sometimes lead to big insights. Like, what does productivity mean for you? What did it mean before AI came on the scene? How were you measuring it? If you weren't measuring it then, how do you think you're going to be able to measure it now?
And I think it might mean something different for like the CIO or the CTO than it does for the actual person using the tool down the line. The actual end user has a different definition of like, can I go home before 7 p.m.? That's a metric of productivity for someone who actually works for a living. Whereas that's not something that some of they're thinking about it at the C-suite, I don't think.
100%. But all of those little moments of here's my philosophy, having managed and led small teams, medium teams, big teams. I like to treat people as adults and they know what they need to do their job well. What your job as a leader is to say, here's the purpose of what we're doing, here's the picture of success, here's the plan to get there, here's generally your part in that plan. But if I have to be in the minutia of telling you, the engineer, who's an incredible machine learning engineer,
Hmm.
the specifics of how to do your job, then I'm really failing at my job. And so if I say, hey, we have Lanai as a system that is enabling us to try whatever you think makes you more productive, and we're just going to make sure that we stay safe as a company with respect to not sending sensitive data where it should be.
Hmm.
Help us help you by finding the workflows that make life easier for you, that make your ability to serve our customers better. When you give people that empowerment, you see the most incredible things. Now, your job as a CIO becomes, well, I'm responsible for quote to cash. And where are all the workflows that we can make more effective and efficient that either reduce costs or drive up revenue? But you can only find that if you're able to see all of those workflows. And that, again, not to make it a commercial for Lanai, but just on the fund build scale, I would say for me as a founder, it was really important to like be very interested, borderline obsessed with this question, which the higher order question is, what is the world of work going to look like? And how is AI going to be used now that cognition has been automated?
Hmm. Talking about managing teams, building teams. Yeah, while you were at Gusto, you helped them scale to like thousands of employees. Lanai, you've got a small founding team. What's the biggest difference in mindset, I guess, between hiring your first 5 employees versus the first 500?
Yeah, I think that the when you are truly in founder mode, pre-revenue founder mode, the the biggest surprise is that the only thing that matters is product market fit, and everything else is noise. And at Google and Gusto, I was in after product market fit mode.
Mm-hmm.
So optimizing machines that already worked, if I'm honest. Like
Mm-hmm.
in other podcasts, I'll take credit for making them work. But the reality is, I wasn't in the boiler room sweating it of like, we're in the zip code of product market fit, but we don't have it. And you only know that you have it not when someone tries the product, but when someone buys the product and then more people buy the product and you have a sense of repeatability. And I would be so old school as to say, you only have product market fit when you actually earn more than it costs you to build the product, but I know that's not venture capital speak. So um, I would say what transferred well between the two phases is I love talking to people, and I really sense when people, if people have a problem that I think I can help them solve, I get really into it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that obsession for listening to people and sharing, here's our solution, and hearing their reaction, and they're like, well, you've sort of solved part of my problem, but not all of my problem. In such a fast-moving market where also their problem is changing like weekly, um, the ability to structure effectively listening posts so that we are able to map a product plan and an engineering roadmap to the wow moments that we
Mm-hmm.
think are the wow moments that we're engineering for don't change necessarily because we keep hearing the themes from customers, but the how and the when, the prioritization of how we do that has to be so much more flexible to what our customers are telling us or our prospective customers are telling us. And I think fundamentally, when I joined Google, we were 4,000 people. When I left, we were 50,000 people, but I was working on teams of things like programmatic advertising, which was ML ads before it was cool,
Mm-hmm.
that were very small, under 10 people, growing to something very big. Gusto was about 100 people that grew to about 2,000 when I left. But the reality is there was a product that was funding my ability
Right.
to largely obsess about people, process, tools, technology that would help us repeatedly and over time be able to continue a good thing that somebody else had really found. Here, we need to find that good thing.
Where were you weakest, I suppose, as a result of your big tech or medium-sized tech experience?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that the weakness was the tendency to think far ahead and build comprehensive solutions. And I have an incredible leader of product um, named Mohit, who came from Splunk, Signal FX to Splunk, and was at NVIDIA beforehand. And he is so good at saying, what's the main thing?
Mm-hmm.
What's the main thing? We have to find a wedge. It has to be one thing. It cannot be multiple things. What is the main thing? And I think that ability to stay focused on the here and now is something that I cannot underestimate how important that is and how non-naturally that came to me
Mm-hmm.
because I always had the benefit in previous roles of being able to sort of, well, we're building horizons and,
Right.
it's Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3. And here, basically, how I have structured that um, to ensure I'm held accountable to staying in the here and now, but I'm also not caught off guard about the future. Every 2 weeks, we sit down and we have a near far meeting
Mm.
where we bring the customer insights we have, the competitive intelligence we have, any market news we have, and say in a pretty structured way, looking at all of the facts that we triangulate in that meeting, does it change our wedge in the here and now so that we are never doing what I know so many startups do and that I will remain afraid of until, we're talking at a different time when we have proven success, Walter, is that we fall in love with our own solution.
Yeah, I've seen
That
that
we
happen.
that we just can't see that we either are talking to the wrong person or focused on the wrong problem or building the wrong product. Um, and I think that that's really easy to do because, like with anything, you just get momentum on something and you start to justify, okay,
Hmm.
well, they didn't like it, but we were talking to the wrong person.
Right, right.
They
Yeah,
didn't
they,
like
yeah,
it, but that they don't get it. It's like so easy to justify. And it's like, no, this is signal. We have to factor that in. So I would say that's it, is like I needed to get really serious about something I had previously been called good at, but was not, which is prioritization and focus on behalf of this incredible team that I've managed to recruit and that I now feel responsible for making sure that we are successful because they've placed a huge bet as our early customers have placed a huge bet in us being able to pull this off.
let's shift a bit and talk about fundraising strategy.
Mhm.
Lanai, you raised money fairly early. Like, where are you exactly? You're at.
Yeah, we're at a seed stage. We've raised about 11 million that came from, again, Juxtapose, which really gets credit for incubating Lanai, Steve in particular, from Lux Capital, and then two operating firms, the Black Angel Group, which spun out a venture arm from a group of operators in Silicon Valley. That was some operators that I knew from Google who now lead that firm, and F7, which is a group of mostly female-led operators who I had known from Meta.
Mhm.
And the combination of real like financial powerhouse that has seen lots of trends in heavy tech, Lux, the sort of operator investor incubator hustler in Juxtapose, and then real operators in Bag and F7 that could offer customer intros, talent intros, um, not to mention make sure that our cap table, as with our team, reflects the diversity of the population we serve. That's been a really good group.
And you and Steve are, a powerhouse team. But, setting all that aside, like looking back at your experience fundraising in this environment, what are some of the signals that and matter most to investors right now in 2025?
Mm. Okay, well, actually, I would say Steve and I being in our second set of life, let's just say, um, I'm not sure that it is as I think a lot of people assume, oh, it's easy because you guys have had all this
No, no,
experience.
no, no, not easy. Just to be clear, I'm saying more like you're not coming in cold. Like, who are these people kind of
Yeah,
thing.
totally. But I have never had to fundraise like on my own. I mean, I ran for Senate, which was a different type of startup, and I helped Gusto fundraise, but I was never on the hook for it. So I'm just saying, I get the question, and I think it's important for your listeners of what is the best fundraising strategy these days. We have moved through the hype cycle of you putting your an AI something in in front of you and money is just going to rain upon you. So I think again, Silicon Valley goes in waves of like what is hot. Once upon a time, online coupons were hot and then they weren't or what have you. So my advice to founders is you to get funding from anyone in a real way, you have to be focused on a big problem that you can solve in a unique way. And you have to show increasingly receipts that that's not you telling a great yarn, weaving a great yarn,
Mm.
but that people are actually coming up behind you and believing that, both talent and customers. So seed stage, I think it is largely about you and your story. And your story doesn't have to be, I've been operating for 30 years in the following context. It could be where you just came out of school with a great idea, but you have to be able to articulate why this, why now, why you?
Mhm.
Why is this problem urgent? Why is it interesting? And why are you the unique, capable person to solve it? You have to get that crisply. And if it's a big enough problem and somebody can really see how this is going to have an economic buyer behind it, and this is going to be a space that you can really lead, you're going to get seed funding. But then Series A onward is about show me the money.
Mhm.
It is about show me the money, especially now. You have to have minimum $1 million in revenue to raise a Series A, and you have to have three referenceable customers that are going to say, I absolutely love this product. And you need to be able to prove that you can land and expand customers powered by customer love. Now, I will say, Walter, big caveat here. I'm not the person to ask about consumer apps. I'm talking about I've worked in selling advertising and financial services to businesses, selling HR platforms
Mhm.
and health benefits to businesses, selling an AI observability platform to businesses. So I am largely, credible in talking about how do you get funding for ideas that serve business owners. I think consumers are a little different, like able to say, if you build it, they will come. But that's not my alley.
Going back to your early customers, like once you actually bagged them,
Mhm.
what's your feedback strategy? Because you don't want to weigh on people too much and really just quiz them constantly. How are you actually gently coaxing actionable feedback out of your early customers? What are the frameworks you're using or the
Well,
tools?
they're in trial. Beta customers are in trial and they get to use the product for free for a couple months. And um, the, the one ask, and if you're smart, you would say then it's not free, is 45 minutes with us weekly, where we have a structured way to get feedback on the product.
Mhm.
So that's logistically how we do it. And with AI, you can do so much to, uh, again, you and I were talking before we started of, I started my career in documentary film and have a passion for good investigative reporting. And I think when you're doing customer discovery, it's a lot like investigative reporting, or when you're getting customer feedback, it's a lot like investigative reporting. So it helps you if you ask the same questions in the same way to a lot of people. And now we can do that and record the feedback very quickly with an AI transcript and get that feedback back to engineers. And
Mhm.
now we have this mountain of customer feedback that we can translate really quickly, that in previous worlds I would have needed somebody in product marketing to take the notes to
Right.
then translate up and communicate out, and then maybe we nail it with our roadmap. This is literally a supply chain of customer says something, it is processed within the day and it shows up on our roadmap, or it goes into we're definitively putting this request below the line because we think this is the order of value we need to create. And that has just been amazing to watch. That's when I say we have 14 humans and 6 AI colleagues. One of those colleagues is doing a lot of heavy lifting around product marketing
Mhm.
and customer feedback.
I used to work in startups, and I remember every early stage team, even if it was just like 8 people, had one person who was a product manager. That was their title. At this point, do you need a dedicated resource like that before you really have customers, a product,
For,
PMF?
for sure, as a startup, you can do more with a whole lot less. I think my advice for startups on this is the same as my advice for very big companies. Your decision on what you're using AI for is ultimately a hiring decision. It's ultimately a workforce expansion decision. And so when you, as a CEO, set your strategy and you say, here is who we're going after with what product, this is how we're going to reach and serve them, this is why we'll win, here's the metrics of success, which is the 5 points of what I think strategy looks like.
Hmm.
Like it gets coded in lots of fancy language, but I think it's ultimately the answer to those 5 things. When you as a CEO have defined that, then you ask your leaders, now, what do you need to make that plan a reality? And they come back to you with an operating plan that includes, here's what I'm going to commit to in terms of outcomes. And this is the staff structure I need to be able to execute on those. Now, your staffing structure should include, in addition to needing these people in these functions, I'm going to use AI to support these functions in the following ways or to do this job in the following way. But just as you performance manage everybody who comes onto your team, they have goals, you have check-ins, you say you're meeting, missing, or exceeding goals. You need to have somebody who is responsible for making sure your AI tools, nay, teammates, are delivering on those goals.
Hmm.
And you, as a leader, need to be able to ask smart questions, which you can only ask if you're familiar with the tools yourself, of, hey, are our sales colleagues who happen to be AI helping us to close deals at a higher yield? Meaning, like, what part of the process are they helping us with? Lead gen, lead qual, meeting management,
Hmm.
closing. Are we closing more or are we closing at a higher rate, like the first purchase price? But you've got to be able to answer that question. It's just a sales funnel for your human teammates. You should be able to answer the same for your AI teammates. So that's a long answer, Walter, but to say that for us, yes, in my plan, I've said, what do we need for us to hit this plan? And we do not need to hire a salesperson as fast as I would have if I were back 5 years ago with Gusto.
Hmm.
I don't need to hire two extra engineers that I would have back when I was at Gusto. And we have support on recruiting and product marketing, as well as content that I wouldn't have had if I were back in Gusto days. So it is meaningful. It's probably 6 people, I say now, maybe more like 8, that otherwise, if we were in a pre-AI era, I would need humans to do that work.
Talking about founders who are pitching investors and that why question, why me, basically.
Mhm.
What are some of the things that, if you were an investor taking a seed stage pitch meeting, what are some of the proofs you'd want to see from someone coming out of a job with, Meta, Google, or another company like that, who had the idea, who had years of domain expertise in certain areas or a certain problem or certain looking at, one aspect of enterprise, whatever it was. What are some of the things you tangibly want to see from them to let you know that they could deliver, that they could recruit someone else, that they could sell to someone when they haven't
At
done
a
it, when they've never
seed
done it
stage,
at the seed
at
stage?
at a
Yeah.
seed stage, I I would just say, show me the 10 people who are going to buy the product if you build it. I therefore am interrogating, have they done enough research and are they close enough to the economic buyer of their product that they could tell me and I could talk to them about why they would buy this product if this person built it. So
Mm.
10 people. And similarly, tell me 10 people who will come and who are going to come build this with you. And I would say you need to have the first 3 people that you're going to hire defined, and they need to be able to reference you. Of course, it goes without saying that I have a history of, you're a bright person who is deeply committed, that delivers in adversity, that when I ask you, like, when things haven't gone well, you have an answer. Like for me, for every interview with investors, with talent, I'm looking for people that spark curiosity, urgency, and drive. because whatever they're coming to me at a seed stage saying they're going to build, it's not going to be that thing. It's not going to be that thing. So, are you deeply curious enough about the general problem space? And are you connected enough to the customers that you aim to serve and the talent you're going to need to be able to serve them well? That's all that I care about.
I,
And I would have an analyst crunching the numbers on the TAM and the SAM and and that stuff. But honestly, like smart people can do amazing things if they're in a big enough problem area. So that's what I would look for.
you wrote a LinkedIn post kind of about flattening hierarchies and organizational design in the AI era. We were just kind of chatting about that.
Mhm.
You've got fewer than 20 people on stage. Is that what, 14, I think you said?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's the biggest difference in culture when you are intentionally keeping things small like that, like small enough for literally like a cruise ship lifeboat? Um, that's a different vibe and culture and everything than like 30 people. So
Mhm.
what's the biggest difference, I guess? And do you think you're losing anything by keeping things this small for this long?
So it's not the size that matters. Um, no, I think the biggest difference is there's no place to hide when you're 20 people. Like when you're small, everyone sees everything. And if someone isn't living your values, it's immediately visible and addressable, and you can course correct in real time. And trust builds through daily interaction. What I ask everybody who I have interviewed, and I started this years ago, so let's say hundreds and hundreds of people who I interview or who I onboard, and I ask them, what's the best team you've ever been on that you just felt like the whole was greater than the sum of its parts? You were in flow, you guys were delivering on all things. And what's the worst? And people say it in different ways, but usually it comes down to trust was broken.
Hmm.
Trust was broken. And I actually have become really a student of that and have always really loved to be on teams that were just doing amazing things, whether it was in a play or on a sports team. And so with Lanai, I've been able to really experiment with something that I saw that I've long believed, but wasn't able to fully round the bend on in previous jobs, which is trust has a code. If you really deconstruct why do people trust each other repeatedly and over time, it's because between two people there was the ability to feel authentic, the ability to trust somebody's logic, the ability to have empathy. Like if you and I were to be friends, you would say Lexi's an empathetic person, she's authentic. I can be authentic with her and I get her the way her mind works. Like it's trustworthy. Between two individuals, if one of those things gets off, then the relationship is in jeopardy and it needs to be repaired. Like if
Mhm.
I say that I really care about your problems, but I'm on my phone while you're telling me your deepest, darkest problems, doesn't feel very empathetic, you know? And so that, how do you scale the feeling that I really trust you between 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, 5,000 people? What we're doing at Lanai is we have taken the answers that everybody has given to those questions of what made a great team great, what had made a bad team horrible. And we've said the things that are the positive become our values. And those
Mhm.
are curiosity, commitment, clarity, and community. And we don't just say those are our values, they are written down as this is what that value means to us. And we hire for those values and we performance manage to those values. And so, an example is we are only here by the grace of our customers. And if we are not obsessed with customers in every meeting at all times, then we are losing our way. So
Hmm.
there is an orange chair in every room. You can see it
Is
there.
that the customer?
That's the customer. Can't sit on the customer chair. And if we're in a debate, we say, what customer do you have in your mind? what customer do I have in your mind? And again, we use AI to transcribe all customer questions in the same way. So everybody, even if you're not talking to customers every day, and I talk to five a day, has the opportunity to know what's on the mind of our customers. Um, this is something that I feel like when you are as deliberate as we're creating two things, we're creating a software product that people rave about. We're also creating a culture that we want to be proud to tell our kids we spend 10, 14 hours away from them to create.
Hmm.
Having those values really be your guiding post for how you hire and how you performance manage. I hope, but watch this space when we're 5,000 people will enable us to take the like deep trust and respect we have for each other now and ensure that that scales. Not because we're going to be perfectly good at getting that right every time, but because we develop a language and a vocabulary to how to repair it when it's broken. And that, we could talk more about, but obviously you've hit on a vein that I am very passionate about. Um, but I just think it's so silly. Like Silicon Valley sometimes I just wonder, especially now with like Broligarchy in ascendance, Mars in retrograde, et cetera, if we lost our mind that like building a startup is a faith-based exercise. It's not unlike building a church.
Hmm.
Like, you have a mission and you have a vision for a world that doesn't
And
exist.
you got to find converts, otherwise it's all for naught.
And then people believe you. People believe you, and you've got to make that future a reality. But ultimately, that is only possible with great people doing great things consistently every day, and peril to the person that forgets that that is what makes great companies. Great people doing great things every day. And I wish that we were not in a space and place where things like 996 culture and we just grind and like like people are an afterthought, especially if people have commitments outside of work to take care of loved ones.
Yeah.
um, because that's not durable, and we're not just creating companies, we're creating durable going concerns
Right.
that produce something great every day.
Sustainable. I'm trying not to make anti 996 my entire personality online, but I keep going back to it because it just seems so obviously. It's such a red flag. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about this also on LinkedIn. If I have to tell you rather than inspire you to work hard in a pre-product market fit, pre-Series A phase,
hmm,
literally I'm asking my board, you should fire me.
yeah.
If I get down to that point where I have to tell the people who work here to work hard on the problems that we have in the right order, then I have failed completely as a leader. Period.
My final question for you: if you were interviewing for a job with an early stage startup, what's one question you'd have to ask the CEO before you could take the offer?
Oh, great question, Walter. One question that I would ask the CEO before I take the offer.
Hmm.
What kind of crazy are you? There's a great article in the New York Times about why you will marry the wrong person, and it basically talks about we fall in love and get married for all the wrong reasons, and the only real question is what kind of crazy are you, and do our crazies uh, cooperate
Right,
when
right,
times are tough? But the reason that I like that question is we all are a little nutty. Every human being is. But does a person have enough self-awareness to say, I'll tell you the answer if you were asking me that. I am really intense. And the intensity is super awesomely helpful. in most cases because we stay focused, we do what we say we're going to do, we get it done, we exceed expectations. But it can be really brutal if you're in the firing line at a time where I feel like we've let our customer down or not met our own expectations. And it can feel like, whoa, we've got Lexi'd, she's just like really on it. Um, but we have vocabulary now. I say that to everybody. That's not a good feeling. There may be times when I do that, and I would like to say those are times when it makes people better, but sometimes it's just being an asshole. And so I need people to tell me, like, Lexi, I got this. Like, you're lexifying me, but I don't need lexifying. I just need time. Take your hands off the keyboard. Give me time to get back to you. And I totally respect that. But I think if a CEO doesn't have an answer, it's the same in the reverse. If I say somebody, where did you fail epically? Like, where is a real yard sale? You are not proud. You still cringe to think about it. And what did you learn from it? If that's a stumper for them, it's a no hire. Because if you're not reflective enough on the things you screwed up or where you're a little crazy, you're probably not going to be self-aware enough to take feedback or to make changes when it's really necessary.
Lexi, I really appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for a great conversation.
Oh, thanks, Walter. I appreciate you.
The Fund, Build, Scale theme was written by Michael Tritter and performed by Michael and Carlos Chairez. Michael also composed Ocean, the track you heard at the top. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and leave a rating. It helps more people find the show. You can get the Fund, Build, Scale newsletter on Beehive, follow along on Instagram, and if you have a guest suggestion or a question, reach me at fundbuildscale@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Fund, Build, Scale is a production of Truth and Soul Media, LLC.